The US is preparing another round of sanctions against Russia. Trump is ready to support the move. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has secured major defense cooperation agreements. What is known about the new sanctions initiative from the US and how could this devastate Russia? President Trump on Monday said that Republican lawmakers were drafting legislation that would authorize severe sanctions on any nation conducting business with Moscow. According to Reuters, Trump told reporters that Republicans were preparing the bill at his urging, describing the measure as direct and forceful response to nations that continue to engage in business with Russia despite ongoing sanctions. Quote, "As you know, I suggested it," Trump said, adding that the proposal would target any nation that does business with Russia and subject violations to penalties he characterized as very severe. Though Trump did not outline the exact mechanism of sanctions, his remarks suggest a form of secondary sanctions, measures that would not only punish Russia but also penalize other governments and financial systems that maintain business with Russia. Such tools have been used in the past, particularly against Iran, but rarely on the scale suggested on Monday. Trump says that Iran might also be included in this bill. Quote, they may add Iran to that. He said, leaving open the possibility that the measure could evolve into a far broader sanctions package targeting US adversaries. Reuters noted that the president did not elaborate on how Iran would be included or whether the sanctions would be tied to its economic links with Russia, its nuclear program, or other long-standing disputes with US. The president's announcements arrives as lawmakers in both parties continue to negotiate a separate initiative aimed at punishing Russia's trading partners for their purchases of Russian oil. A bipartisan bill prepared by Lindsey Graham and Senator Richard Blumenthal would impose tariffs up to 500% on goods imported from countries that buy Russian oil, gas, or other materials. Trump has signaled his willingness to support this. However, he has also suggested he prefers flexibility in this matter. For months, congressional aides have said Graham-Blumenthal proposal is designed to choke off Russia's revenue streams by making it impossible for other nations to buy its energy exports. Trump's endorsement of an even broader sanctions framework, as described in the Reuters report, would appear to go beyond the Senate bill, potentially empowering the president to take actions against any nation engaged with Russia economically. If Republicans move forward with this legislation, Trump described, US would be poised to implement one of the most expensive sanctions regime in modern history, forcing nations around the globe to choose between continued access to American markets and maintaining trade with Russia. Analysts say such decision could have consequences for global markets and diplomatic alliance. Countries like India, China, and Middle East states, some of them, have deepened energy or commodity ties with Russia in recent years, and it remains unclear how they would respond to US sanctions. Even European allies have maintained select channels of commerce with Russia, raising questions about enforcement and the potential for diplomatic strain. As Reuters emphasized, Trump did not provide specifics on how broadly the term doing business with Russia would be defined. It remains unknown whether the sanctions would apply only to the energy sector, where Russia remains a global player, or to a trade, including metals, fertilizers, financial transactions, or state-owned companies. Nor did he offer a timeline for the bill might be formally introduced, debated, or brought to a vote. Congressional leaders have not yet confirmed how closely the new proposal aligns with existing bills, whether it would replace them or run in parallel, or how much authority the measure would grant to the president. If approved, the legislation would give US power to penalize major global economies on an unprecedented scale, raising questions about future compliance, retaliation, and stability of world markets, according to Reuters. It would also mark a significant expansion of Trump's leverage in international negotiations, granting Trump new tools to pressure Russia. For now, the world is left with Trump's warning and Reuters' confirmation that a powerful new sanctions regime may be on the horizon. As the legislative picture develops, both allies and rivals will be watching closely to see how far US is willing to go in its bid to isolate Russia and force to the negotiating table. Meanwhile, the latest round of US sanctions targeting Russia's energy giants Rosneft and Lukoil is beginning to pressure Moscow's wartime finances and force some of Russia's largest companies to consider restructuring, according to recent reports from major news outlets. The sanctions announced in late October freeze the US-based assets of Rosneft and Lukoil, bar American companies from dealing with them, and threaten secondary sanctions on foreign financial governments that continue doing business with these companies. According to Financial Times, US action could cost Lukoil up to 14 billion euros in overseas assets after a planned sale to commodities trader Gunvor collapsed under US pressure. Financial Times also reports that the sanctions could cover more than 30 other companies. Business Insider reported that Russia's oil and gas revenues plunged 27% this year, dropping to more than 800 billion rubles. Analysts quoted by the outlet warns that Rosneft and Lukoil handle nearly half of Russia's seaborne crude oil, and disruptions to their operations could seriously isolate Kremlin's budget at a time when the war effort is consuming billions of dollars. Associated Press reported that Lukoil is preparing to sell many of its international assets, including European refining operations and retail fuel networks, in response to these sanctions. The company is operating under a wine-brown license from US Treasury Office of Foreign Control, but Associated Press says Lukoil may seek an extension due to the difficulty of unwinding its foreign holdings. Guardian also notes that refineries in India and China, two of Russia's biggest consumers, are reassessing purchases to avoid engaging in US restrictions. Bloomberg reporting indicates that major Chinese oil companies have paused seaborne crude purchases from Russia as they evaluate sanctions exposure. Analysts quoted by Bloomberg say such hesitation could undermine Moscow's export stability. Business Insider's analysts suggest the convergence of failing revenues and shrinking export options could place Russia under sustained financial stress. Financial Times reports that European leaders, also UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, believes the sanctions would strengthen Ukraine's negotiating position by squeezing Russian state finances. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy secured new energy and defense commitments from Greece and France during a two-day European tour aimed at shoring up support for Ukraine ahead of difficult winter, according to Reuters reporting. Zelensky's first stop was Athens, where he announced the agreement allowing Ukraine to import US liquefied natural gas through Greece to help country meet its winter energy needs. According to Reuters, agreement struck between Greece's state-controlled gas company DEPA and Ukraine's Naftogaz will supply Ukraine with LNG from December this year through March next year, with deliveries routed through the Balkan gas pipeline network. Shipments are expected to begin in January. Zelenskyy said Ukraine had mobilized 2 billion euros to finance this, telling reporters that Russian attacks on Ukraine's energy grid made the deal essential. The funding package includes support from European institutions, Ukrainian banks, US partners, according to Reuters. Also, Zelenskyy traveled to Paris the next day, where he met with French President Emmanuel Macron to finalize a set of major defense cooperation agreements. According to Reuters, France and Ukraine are preparing what Zelenskyy described a historic package: air defense systems, combat aircraft, potentially including a framework for 100 Rafale fighter jet missiles and broader aviation cooperation, also additional SAMP-T systems. Reuters reported that French package could involve both immediate transfers from existing stockpiles and long-term cooperation between Ukraine and France. Zelenskyy was expected to sign letters of intent and attend defense industry forum with major French companies. However, Reuters noticed that questions remain about how the agreements will be financed, given France's tight budget, environment, and political constraints. Macron's office told Reuters the goal was to put French excellence in the arms industry at Ukraine's disposal and support Kyiv's effort to fend off continuing Russian missile drone attacks. Together, the stops in Greece and France deliver to Ukraine's most urgent priorities: energy security for winter and air defense capacity. That's all for today. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and glory to Ukraine.